Well, Nancy, it's so good to see you.
Well, it's nice to see you as well. Sorry, I'm not in Jacksonville, but I don't travel much anymore.
I know you're amazing. Is it improper to ask you how old you are now? Are you in your 90s?
I was 90 in April 25th.
Wow, congratulations. That's awesome.
Well, I have to thank the Lord for that.
That's wonderful. And you're living in New York City
Yes, I am.
because the last place that your husband Bob Parks served was Trinity Wall Street, right?
That's correct. Yes.
I see. That's where he retired from.
Right. We were there 15 years. Right.
But before that final call, he served here as
Yes, we
dean
did.
of this cathedral.
12 years as the dean of the cathedral in Jacksonville.
Wow. And tell me, what years was that approximately? Do you remember?
1960 to 1972.
Okay. What do you remember from that time, Nancy? What was it like here in Jacksonville in 1960?
Well, I was 26 when I became Mrs. Dean. And
Wow.
when we moved to the cathedral, we had a 4.5-year-old child and a 1.5-year-old child.
Oh, so what you remember is that probably just taking care of your little children.
Well, I remember that, but we had a lot going on at the cathedral at the time. So when we got there, there were no buildings there other than the cathedral itself and the old rectory, a big 2-story building that Van Winder Shields and his family lived in. So there was a lot to do. And so eventually we had everything, Cathedral House, the Cummings Chapel, the Urban Jacksonville, the Foundation, Cathedral Towers, Cathedral Terrace, Cathedral Townhouse, all those things, and Health and Rehabilitation Center. Much
Wow.
going on.
Let me just unpack that a little bit for our congregation, Nancy. So in other words, there was just the worship space. Oh, it looks like I've gotten frozen a little bit here. Oh boy. Let me see. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but
Okay, well, let's just keep going. I'll just look funny in the picture. But so we had just the church when you came. You built the Cathedral House with Bob, the Cummings Chapel, then the Cathedral Foundation, which would eventually become Aging True. Those 3 big white high rises, you guys also had those built, as well as our nursing home and
Yes.
Episcopal School of Jacksonville. Boy, that was 12
School.
years of a lot of great activity.
It was, and we had lots of meetings at the deanery, so
I bet you did.
I was dispensing coffee all the time.
That's funny. Well, tell me a little bit more about how Bob figured out about these various projects. So he built affordable housing for elderly. That was a really new concept in the urban core. People were moving out of the urban core, weren't they?
Yes, they were. When we came, there were 600 communicants listed, I think, at the cathedral, and the average age was 60, because most of the young people had gone to either St. Mark's or Good Shepherd. So I'm not sure what happened, but I've lost you except for a tiny picture.
I see you. I'm just trying to work on my picture here.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, there I go. That helped. So you said there were only 600 communicants and most of them were over the age of 60 when he arrived?
Average age was 60. That included my 2 small children.
Wow. Now, Nancy, why was that? Was it because people had moved out of the downtown?
Well, the young people they'd moved out to Ortega and Riverside. They were either at Good Shepherd or St. Mark's, among other places, but those were the 2 largest ones that we understood. So
but Bob Parks and the vestry were very clear that they did not want to move out of the downtown. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Did they actually discuss the possibility?
Well, yes, the bishop actually wanted us to move the whole thing out to where the high school is now, but Bob didn't want to do that. And the vestry went along with Bob. And
I'm so glad they did. Glad they did.
Because we figured the best place for older people to live was downtown. Everything's there. So
And also, I've always felt like Jesus would be there downtown in the trenches. I mean, that was where the real ministry occurs, in the downtown, right?
Well, at least part of it, that's right. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it was a fascinating time, and that's when much was happening everywhere. The 60s were a volatile time.
They sure were.
Everywhere, not just Jacksonville. So, but it was a fascinating time, and we had a very interesting time. And Bob was busy, and he had dreams. He had dreams, and was able to get people to see the dream and work on having it come to fruition. So that's how we got the cathedral where it is now.
Yeah. And tell me about the dream of Episcopal School of Jacksonville. How did that come up? I mean, the schools were being integrated later on, right? Was that during your time when they were being integrated?
Well, in the 60s, I guess it was. Mrs. DuPont wanted to segregate the school. She didn't want to give any money to the Episcopal school if it was not segregated. And Bob told her he's very sorry, but we wouldn't take any money that segregated anything. So we had,
good for him.
Yeah, we had, when we were at the beach, we had a small school down there. And that's Bob's dream, was to have an Episcopal high school. So it was lucky that the cathedral owned that land out, in where the school is. And so he worked with the vestry, and they all decided what they were going to do, and we had the school, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it sure is.
Beautifully. So,
and now there are over 1,000 students. Isn't that amazing, Nancy, how much it's grown?
Yes, it's wonderful. So happy that it's doing so well.
Yeah.
And of course, now they've got St. Mark's and the beaches and all these satellite schools that are connected to the, downtown. So I've tried to keep up with what's happening. So,
good for you. Good for you. I know I see you often on Facebook, and I'm amazed at that. You're amazing. So Nancy, tell me a little bit more about Bob's devotional life, his spiritual life. How did he pray, and how did he discern God's will?
Well, that's rather difficult to say. I was not always there with him, but he had a prayer life, and he frequently would pray early in the morning, and we would pray together at night. And and he was busy so much, I used to laughingly say I had to keep a picture of him at home so the children would know who their father was, because he was always in meetings.
Yeah, I bet.
But no, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I was not always with him. So, but he was very spiritual, and he certainly depended upon the Lord. So,
and after he left here, he would go to Trinity. And tell us about what that was like at Trinity Wall Street for him and for you.
Well, it was it was somewhat different. It was a good thing that we'd been at the cathedral, because at that point, the city of New York was having trouble, and Trinity, some of the vestry wanted to sell some of the property, and he said, no, we don't sell land because you can't get any more land. And so, in my opinion, he saved Trinity, but that's my opinion. So, but he saved things so that now it's in good shape. So, but it'll be interesting what the history books say.
So, I think the history books will look very fondly back upon him. He was an amazing leader there. So truly an amazing leader. Yeah.
Well, in World War II, he was in the Navy. He was a pilot. And when he came out of World War II, he had back trouble. He crashed an airplane and messed up his back. And it was healed. And the only time it ever gave him trouble again was when he tried to move pianos. So,
well, that would be problematic for anyone. Yeah.
But no, he he was quite an amazing man, and full of energy and good ideas, and somehow was able to make people understand what he wanted and what he was dreaming about and get them excited and
Yeah,
involved.
that's
So,
wonderful. That's wonderful. I love that.
and we were lucky to have excellent other clergy working with us. So
Mhm. That is a key. I know. I depend on the clergy I work with as well. That is a key to have good clergy. Yeah. And after Trinity Wall Street is such a huge, I mean, it's not really even a church, it's a corporation. I mean, he had so much to manage there and managed to do a good job in that complex environment. After retiring, what was it like for you? He was back home more with you, and what was that like?
Well, it was the first day he was back home. He was sitting there and said, "What am I going to do?" I said,
bet.
"Well, you're going to read the New York Times from cover to cover. That's one of the things you've always said you wanted to do." So I said, "Here's the paper, read it from cover to cover," you know. But he stayed busy, and we worked with several small churches around. He filled in, and there were several places that wanted him to come and teach, but he was not willing to do that. So that's, I think he was ready to retire. But we had a wonderful time, and had wonderful people to work with. That's one of the good things.
It is, yeah.
The congregations plus the clergy, So
How old was Bob when he retired?
69.
69. Good age, yeah.
Well,
And
the
I remember, Nancy, he passed away in a church pew right as I became the dean here. Do you remember? I remember learning about that. And that was in church at Trinity, wasn't it? Or is that how it happened? No.
All Saints around the corner where we went every Sunday. And
Okay.
It's about 3 blocks from here where we live, my apartment. So, but no, we had breakfast and we walked to church, and he sat down in the pew, and I handed him the prayer book and hymnal. He put his head down on his chest and expelled some wind, and was gone.
Wow.
Just that fast. So, and of course they sent an ambulance and we went to the hospital, but they couldn't revive him, which was, he would not have wanted to be revived, I don't think. So he was almost 92.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing.
But we've been told that the breath of life enters you and then it leaves you. And I heard it leaving him.
You sure did. You sure did. So, and I believe that you will see him again in full.
So do I. I'm looking forward to it.
I bet you are. I bet you are.
So, and I'm sure that he's happy, and I'm imagine he's building something. If there's anything,
I'm sure he is building more things up there in the kingdom. So, Nancy, what are your hopes and dreams for the cathedral here in Jacksonville? What would you like us to continue to do or to become?
Well, my goodness, what I've seen and all of what you all are doing, you're doing everything you should, and it's been wonderful. And I was just read that you're now on the Coalition for the Homeless in the city. Is that right? And
yes,
the board or something. And no, I'm just happy that you all are still staying involved with everything that's going on in the city. I think that's very important. So
yeah, it is really part of our DNA, isn't it, to be part of the city here?
Yes, and and it's a good. Well, what shall I say? It's a good example for the city, to know that God is involved. So,
amen. Yeah,
it's important.
And how have you kept on? Because you were younger than Bob, and you've had a number of years after his passing to be on your own. What's that been like for you?
Well, totally different. But I was lucky. I had my 2 sons and lots of friends, and I managed to stay on some boards and things, and I've kept myself busy. And I've been very busy until recently when I suddenly got sick and wound up in the hospital. But now I'm doing fine, doing much better. So
I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are. You've been such a wonderful presence, Nancy. I know that you're there watching over us and praying for us, and it means a great deal to have you be one of our saintly people out there that's kind of keeping an eye on us.
Well, I would like to be considered a saintly person, and I understand we all saints, all of us are
Yes, we
saints.
all are. We all are. And
Yes.
I loved, a few years ago, I got to visit you in your apartment, which is just beautiful up there. And I'm glad it's so full of light. I loved it with, I'm glad to picture you there. You have a little peaceful place there.
Well, it is. It's very, very nice, and I'm very fortunate to have it. And I was happy to have you come by, and I hope you'll come again when you're in the city. But
Me
it's
too.
it's very nice to be here. And I've lived here longer in this apartment than I've ever lived anywhere in my life. So
Wow. So it's really home. It's really
yeah,
home to you. Well,
it,
well, we wish you all of God's blessings. We're so grateful that you're around and that you're healthy and you have such wonderful memories. And we're going to enjoy the people that will be watching this video are studying about the history of the cathedral and the rich roots that we've laid in the city that are bearing fruit even today. So I know that they are saying thank you to you along with me. But thank you for being here with me this morning.
may I ask you one question?
Sure. Yeah.
Is the nursing home still open and busy?
Yes, the nursing home is very busy. During the pandemic, the finances went out of whack with nursing homes in general. So we had to sell it to a bigger company that runs it now. They run about 35 nursing homes. So we don't own it, but we insisted that it be a place where we could still run our worship services and be there as a religious presence. So we maintain that connection, which is good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just wasn't sure what had happened. So
Yeah, no, it's doing a very good job. And they're still taking care of lots and lots of elderly people who couldn't otherwise afford to be in a nursing home of that quality. So it's really good. Yeah.
one of the things that was there when we came with it, right around the cathedral, were a lot of big, tall, 2 and 3 story homes that people lived in. And when they
Yes.
moved out, then they became nursing homes. And Bob used to go visit there. And that's one reason he got involved with building a retirement centers and all that, because he was appalled at how badly run those places were. And how hard it was for old people to be there, So I'm happy to know things are still going well.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't know that it was from visiting people in their homes that he came up with that he found that calling from God, because it certainly is a calling. I think that both the affordable housing for the elderly and the nursing home are definitely really beautiful ministries and Aging True, what was the Cathedral Foundation, Nancy, has now grown way beyond us. It's out in Clay County. It's ministering to thousands and building more and more affordable housing. It's just remarkable. So they are really, really becoming very large.
Well, good, because we had the sweat equity housing, urban Jacksonville put that.
Oh, yes, that's still very much there. And Jacks is the largest Habitat for Humanity program in the United States that was part of Urban Jacksonville. That's now a separate nonprofit. So it's like if you gave birth to children, Nancy, you're having children and grandchildren now with these nonprofits. They're just growing and expanding and multiplying. So
Well, that's wonderful, because we had at one point storefront clinics that doctors gave their time, voluntarily gave their time to go and run these clinics, which was really good, because you found people didn't get jobs because they were ill. So they had to, and couldn't afford to go to the doctor. So
yes.
glad all these things are still going on. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we now call that Volunteers in Medicine. It's also a large nonprofit, but they provide provide health care for people that don't have health insurance. So it's really good. Yeah.
Well,
So many wonderful things that Bob created and planted along with the help of the congregation and God that are now bearing great fruit all over the city.
Well, that's always wonderful to think your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren keep going. So
Yep. Amen to that.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, and keep at it then.
Thank you, Nancy. God bless you.
Thank
Take
you.
care of yourself.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.